Hello and welcome to another standard video here on the official MTG Arena channel. Today we're checking out the brand new DUSKMOURN metagame with this white, red and green or Naya colored legend survivor deck featuring 4 copies of Kona, Rescue Beastie as one of our build around cards. This 4/3 has a new survival mechanic which cares about the creature in question being tapped at the beginning of our second main phase to enable its ability, and in this case we can put any permanent card from our hand onto the battlefield, so reminiscent of an Elvish Piper, but unlike the Elvish Piper, we can immediately tap Kona the same turn we play it to enable its ability, so we can cheat some expensive permanents into play, such as Etali Primal Conqueror, which will get to exile the top card of each player's library until we find a non-land card and cast it for free. We also have a Kogla and Hidaro, which can maybe come down and fight an opposing creature. We've got Roxanne, which can make Meteorite tokens to deal 2 damage to any targets, and then also make additional mana. And the Dragonhawk especially also quite good with Kona, as we're already going to have an extra 4-powered creature into play, so Dragonhawk can exile multiple cards off the top of our deck to either deal more damage to the opponent or provide additional card advantage. So that's our primary game plan. For that to work, we ideally have some ways to tap Kona without needing to attack with it. That way we can enable it right away and we don't need to put Kona in harm's way, and there's a few ways to do it. One of those is a Relic of Legends, a 3-mana artifact that can tap to add 1 mana of any color, and we can also tap an untapped legendary creature we control at any point to add 1 mana of any color. So this also ignores Summoning Sickness, so we can play turn 3 Relic, turn 4 play any of our legends, and then we do want to be in full control since sometimes the game doesn't hold priority if you don't have anything to cast, but you're allowed to go full control, tap down Kona after playing it, and then go to your second main phase and put something into play for free. If we don't draw a relic, we can also rely on vehicles, such as the Unidentified Hovership, which can come down exiling an opposing creature with toughness 5 or less. If the opponent answers the Hovership, they just get to manifest Dread in return, so they don't even get the original creature back. And then a turn 3 Hovership, turn 4 Kona, we can immediately crew the Hovership to maybe attack for 2, and that's another way of tapping Kona without needing to attack with it. And then besides vehicles, we can also use mounts, such as Fortune, which has a saddle mechanic, so that's similar to vehicles, where we can tap Kona to saddle Fortune, and then in the case of Fortune, when it attacks, it can also help flicker some of our creatures, and we've seen some powerful enter the battlefield abilities that can synergize with Fortune, such as Roxanne dealing more damage, Dragonhawk exiling more cards, and Etali finding more stuff, as well as Kogla maybe finding an additional creature, so there's plenty of synergy with Fortune even without the interaction with Kona and the other survivors. And then when Fortune enters, we also get to scry 2, so that can also help set up our draw steps. So those are all the ways we have of easily tapping Kona. Of course, occasionally you can also just attack with it and enable survival that way as well. And then besides Kona, we also have 2 copies of Rip Spawn Hunter as another survivor that we want to try and tap. In this case, we get to look at the top 4 cards of our library to reveal any creature and or vehicle cards with different powers and put them into our hand. So that can also be a nice source of card advantage. And then rounding out the deck, we have 2 copies of Annie Joins Up as another powerful permanent we can cheat and play with Kona, dealing 5 damage to an opposing creature or planeswalker, and then from now on, if a triggered ability of a legendary creature we control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So that's why we have a legendary sub-theme in our deck as well, plenty of legends to trigger multiple times with Annie Joins Up on the battlefield to quickly take over. And then we want lots of cheap interaction, especially at 1 mana. We want ways to exile opposing creatures because of the popularity of the red aggro decks with a new Leyline of Resonance. Being able to exile their creatures is key. So we've got 4 copies of Torture Tower, can occasionally enable it with Bargain as well. And then Elspeth's Smite can deal 3 to an attacking or blocking creature, exiling it in the process. And these are also 1 mana answers we can keep up after tapping out for a Relic of Legends on turn 3, so that's also nice. And then a Get Lost, another versatile answer that can also maybe destroy enchantments like the opponent's Leyline. And then the mana base also picked up a lot of new tools with the new Verge lands, Hushwood Verge, as well as Thornspire Verge. Initially only make 1 color until we find their respective basic types to go alongside them. And then we've got a few basics to fetch up with Fabled Passage to enable them, as well as cards like Elegant Parlor, which lets us Surveil to set up our draw steps, but also has 2 basic land types to enable the Verge lands, so those also have excellent synergy. Still want 4 copies of Inspiring Vantage, despite it not having great synergy early with the Verge lands, just so we can keep up our turn 1 Tortured Tower and Elspeth Smite. And then we also have a one-off Plaza of Heroes, which can make colored mana to help cast our legendary spells, and has the additional utility in the late game of maybe sacrificing it to make one of our legendaries gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. It's not going to help us cast our early removal spells, and it doesn't necessarily contribute towards a double white on Hovership in the early turns, so definitely want to limit the numbers of Plaza, but as a one-off it can be pretty fun. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw with a decent hand. Fortune into Kona, can cheat in Roxanne, and we have some early interaction as well. So for now we'll keep up Smite for the Might Caller. And a Quest Caller, it's going to make it up to a 2-2. Still happy to exile it here. And then we can fetch with Fabled Passage. If I get a Plains, these will also make white, but could also just get an extra red source if we'd like. The Evangelist making a bad token, which also gets pumped by the Valley Quest Caller. So we will have some catching up to do. For now, play Fortune. And then we want to look for big expensive things we can cheat into play, basically. Opponent with a Warren Guard. They already have a token in play. An attack. And that's it. Hovership. I'm still missing double white since I fetched Mountain. But yeah, it's going to be Kona, Saddle, and then just go to the second main. I don't think we want to attack with Fortune and have them double block. And put in Roxanne, which can shoot down probably just a bad token. And then next turn we can put Roxanne to use. A Season of the Burrow, exiling 2 of my permanents. That's painful. Although, at least we found a Dragonhawk. And our opponent gets in. They also get to make a Rabbit token to pump up the Warren Guard. So yeah, that Season of the Burrow was about as impactful as it could have been. Often a one-off in these Rabbit decks. Now we can cast a Hovership thanks to the Meteorites. But is that our best play? Probably have to exile the Evangelist. And then if Kona attacks, I can put in Dragonhawk. So then we might still be able to survive. Yeah, I guess that's reasonable. Find a Relic of Legends. So if I want to play Hovership, it's not like I can play another 4-drop here, so may as well play the Relic into Hovership or into Rip, but I would rather exile the Evangelist. Could also exile the Quest Caller, which is also pumping up their team. But Evangelist could leave behind another bat, gives Battle Cry, so I think this is reasonable. Alright, just need to survive another turn here. Opponent attacks. Have to block the Warren Guard. And our opponent's got another one. So we're still in the game. Next turn I could play Rip and then tap it in a multitude of ways to find more action. And how about an Etali? Yeah, I mean, I could just cast Etali at this point, so we have more 4-powered creatures for Dragonhawk, although playing Rip and then having Kona be tapped is also a way to put in Etali, I guess. And then we would still have an extra 4-powered creature. Question is whether I want to tap Rip. I don't think that's necessary. I would rather have the extra blocker, since we're not lacking card advantage. Found an Italian Exile. Wouldn't be able to cast that one. And then Cheatin Italy, which hits Get Lost and War Leader, so that's an exciting one, and our opponent packs it in. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and we've got a functional hand. Is it going to be good enough to beat the red aggro deck with a Leyline? Probably not. But turn 3 Hovership, turn 4 Kona. We get to Surveil as well in the meantime. And then Kona can put in Kogla or Roxanne. No Leyline from the opponent, that's good. Second Roxanne is not quite as needed. But our opponent is on the red aggro deck with turn 1 Scamp. Alright, so we don't have any 2-mana interaction, but next turn we'll be able to play the Hovership and exile the Scamp potentially. Would have been fine to play Vantage in case we draw another one. Although an untapped 4th land is really the key here. Opponent does have a Slick Shot, so that one's always scary. And we did draw Torch the Tower, which is also quite good. Still want to play Hovership, so we can set up Kona next turn. And then, if our opponent deploys Slick Shot without increasing its toughness, Roxanne could take it out. I could still go for Kona, put in Roxanne, although then Slick Shot gets a chance to hit us. With Torch the Tower and Hovership to sacrifice, I could also deal 3 damage if needed on a Slick Shot. So yeah, I could die here if I tap out for Kona, but it does put me in a pretty good position if I can cheat in Roxanne and then have Torch the Tower available in future turns. So it's a close call. Could just go with a tap land and then next turn make that play. Might be a little safer. Because their opponent hasn't deployed more creatures, so their hand's more likely to contain a lot of pump spells. And then now we can play Kona. I'll go full control, since sometimes the game doesn't hold priority to let us tap Kona, since it's kind of an unintuitive play. And then I could also go for Dragonhawk now, as an extra flyer. Although I suppose Roxanne could always crew the Hovership to have an extra flying blocker. So yeah, close decision. I think I'll go with Dragonhawk anyway. Got 2 4-powered creatures. And deal some damage on the way out. So now I can maybe force the opponent to pump Slick Shot after blocking it. And then we can Torch the Tower in response. Right, opponent's just hard casting the red Leyline, so can destroy that with Kogla if we pay 4 mana. Although we should be close to just winning the game. If I cast Kogla, I guess I would need double green, which I don't have. Otherwise we could have attacked with a 7-powered haste creature, and that certainly would have done it. Although if I go Roxanne, hit my opponent for 2, crew the Hovership, and then attack, this is going to deal another 6 damage, so yeah, that should be plenty. And I can even keep up Torch the Tower. And that'll do it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand would have been excellent with white mana to play an early Smite, with Relic helping us tap Kona to cheat in various 5 and 6 drops. At the moment, we're missing a 3rd land and white mana. Once we play Relic, we can keep up Smite, but against some red decks that might be too slow. I think I still try it just because we have the powerful top end and the Kona combo. Our opponent is on red aggro, luckily without a Leyline, and we drew a white source on turn 1. So that's quite helpful. So we can wait for the opponent to pump up Heartfire Hero and then try and exile it. Opponent's going to main phase the Monstrous Rage, that's fine. Doesn't really change Smite exiling it. So yeah, saved ourselves 5 damage right now. And next turn I can play Relic. Ideally, we would have picked up another 1 mana answer. And then we do want to make sure to go full control the turn we plan to play Kona with the Relic in play, so we can still tap Kona. Scamp is next. 2 cards in hand. Might of the Meek, one of them. So just 2 damage. That's reasonable. Now one card that would be quite painful to face is Dreadmaw's Ire, since that can destroy artifacts if the opponent hits us. So that's the main concern. But I think we still want to play the Relic to set up Kona next turn, even though Get Lost was now an option too. Doesn't seem like our opponent necessarily has the tools in hand to win next turn, although you never know with Cacophony Scamp. Couple pump spells and a Sellsword, you can easily get to 16. So 2 cards in hand. Shock is one of them, so yeah, we should be safe to untap here. And another Shock, so that's all fine. We're at 8. And we can play Kona. And then what do we want to put in play is the question. Kogla and Yidaro could immediately fight the Scamp perhaps, and then have a large blocker for the Swiss Spear. I think that's the safest play. And then next turn we can put in Dragonhawk, since that'll close out the game pretty quickly with all these 4-powered creatures. Another Swiss Spear. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, and we've got a great hand. Torture Tower for all the aggro decks out there, especially the ones starting with a Leyline. And then I think I wait for the opponent to commit some pump spells, even though it could be risky if they can increase toughness enough. Swiss Spear is fine. And then hopefully they'll commit a pump spell here. It's gonna be Might of the Meek, targeting Swiss Spear. So Prowess will resolve first, before they get to copy from Might of the Meek, sadly. So I have to hope that they target the Heartfire hero with one of them, which would make sense. Alright, so we get to exile the Heartfire hero. Opponent still gets to draw a card here, but at least Might of the Meek doesn't have a mouse in play to pump power. And Smite was another excellent draw. So keep up Smite, even though it's a little awkward in the face of Swiss Spear, since Prowess can increase its toughness even more. And our opponent's playing Might of the Meek before attacking to maybe play around it. And yeah, 1 mana, draw 2 cards. Is going to be difficult to keep up with. If Swiss Spear attacks and they try and pump, I'll have to decide whether to smite or not. Opponent just happy dealing 2 damage, and they're going to pass it back. So we can play Relic, still keep up smite, and then next turn play Kona, cheat in either Dragonhawk or Roxanne. Scamp is fine. Can they give it haste maybe? They can with Felonious Rage. So yeah, Scamp is the real creature we want to smite here if possible, since it's threatening a lot of damage. Alright, gotta go for it since our opponent passed priority, but now they can pump the Swiss Spear instead. By exiling the Scamp, they also don't get to make any detective tokens. Alright, and then now we get to play Kona, make sure to go full control. So I can tap it, and then on this board, Roxanne to take out Swiss Spear is probably the move. Even though Dragonhawk in play would help me close out the game a little faster. These decks typically don't play Lightning Strike, which could otherwise take out Kona before we get to enable the ability. And then I can still surveil with a Parlor, maybe looking for another expensive creature. That works. So our opponent's out of threats now. And another Kona doesn't seem needed. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. So we even beat a Leyline on the battlefield on turn 0. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have what looks like a Keeper. Wouldn't be able to smite right away, but can maybe play Parlor, look for a second white source, and then Fabled Passage can always fetch it up. Or get our green for Kona. So this is perfect. Both colors and Parlor enables it. So could fetch with Fabled Passage now, or play Verge and then save Fabled Passage for turn 4. Either way works, I think. Opponent is red-black, but no 1-drop, no Leyline. It's going to be a challenger. Yeah, normally I would smite it, but next turn we want to play Hovership anyway, so we may as well hold the smite for later. And then Hovership sets up Kona, which cheats in Kogla at the very least. Opponent's got another challenger, so we can fight it with Kogla. And sure, we can thin out the deck a little bit. Color doesn't matter too much since we have another Verge in hand. And then I'll go full control here just to make sure we can crew the Hovership in case the game were to pass priority. It's more of an issue with Relic of Legends, but good to make a habit out of it when playing Kona. And then I guess we may as well hit for 2 here. Although technically we could keep the Hovership untapped so we can crew it with Kogla and Hidaro. But if our opponent's playing a Slick Shot here, they likely have a pump spell to go with it as well. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand feels a little too slow, no early interaction, and also no way to easily tap our 4-drops. So we'll mulligan, this is better. Can smite on 1, turn 3 Relic, still keep up smite, and then turn 4 play Rip and immediately tap it. So what has to go here? Could make it a Thornspire Verge, that way turn 1 Plains, turn 2 I can fetch either Mountain or Forest, more likely Mountain, and then we should be good to go. Opponent is on the red aggro deck with a turn 1 Heartfire Hero, so Elspeth's Smite is going to be the perfect answer. This one only makes green mana initially, although now we might want to fetch Forest to enable our 2 other lanes, although I might still need double red at some point. I'll let damage happen, wait for the opponent to commit a pump spell before smiting, and then stick to the plan, play Fabled Passage. Cacophony Scamp is next. Maybe our opponent has a creature-heavy draw without pump spells. Or they're playing around Elspeth's Smite. Either way, we can still keep it available next turn after playing Relic of Legends. And yeah, red mana is still reasonable. Relic will fix our colors no matter what, assuming it sticks around. But getting a Forest would allow me to have double white more easily, which matters with a Hovership. Alright, Torch Tower the draw, so we can play Relic and keep either Torch or Smite available. And now a Percussionist, another 1-1 with haste. Also good to exile. So yeah, the damage is adding up. Opponent with a Dreadmoss Ire on the hero, which would destroy the Relic of Legends too. So I want to make sure the Heartfire hero dies. And I think Smite is the safest play here in case they have a second Dreadmoss Ire. We would still take it out, unlike Torch Tower. But it doesn't look like they have anything else. Opponent's got 1 card left in hand. Now, as much as I want to tap Rip to find more action, I think I need it back as a blocker this time. So yeah, we can play Rip and then still have a Relic of Legends to cast Torture Tower, maybe after blocking their creature and forcing out another pump spell. And then next turn I could hard cast Etali, which is pretty good too. Percussionist attacks, opponent maybe just wants to play their top card. That's fine, we'll see what it is. It's gonna be turn inside out, so they can still play it next turn. But that's fine by me. So we'll fetch Mountain, play a Tally, tapping a Rip in the process to find more cards, and then I'll still be able to Torture Tower by tapping a Tally if needed. And we hit Scamp and Fortune, so not bad. And Dragonhawk seems excellent here. And another Torture Tower I wouldn't mind either. So in this order, as Dragonhawk's gonna reveal Torture Tower. Although I guess Rip is a reason to get rid of Torture Tower, since of course we can only keep creatures here. So yeah, I should have bottomed Torture Tower. Forgot about Rip's ability. But yeah, we're still fine. So our opponent needs to use turn inside out this turn. Can still block with our creatures before casting Torture Tower. And may as well block with everyone. Turn inside out resolves. No need to torch and response. Opponent wants to go to damage, and then now we'll torch. Probably don't need to cast it with bargain. And that's exiled. And that will do it. Awesome. So another red deck bites the dust. And yeah, as long as we can draw those 1-mana instants to exile their creatures, we should have a pretty decent matchup, since we can often set up some nice 2-for-1s when the opponent goes to cast their pump spells. And then, especially if we can use Kona to cheat in a powerful threat, we can very quickly close out the game before we give the opponent time to recover. So it should be a winnable matchup. It's by far the most popular matchup on the ranked ladder right now, so just make sure you respect it and keep hands that can interact early, and then you should be fine. So yeah, overall the deck's pretty fun to play. I've also tried an Abzan version with Kona, with some of the saddle creatures, and I think I prefer this one just because we have more room for early interaction, since we don't need to play a 2-mana mount as part of our initial game plan, and then that gives us a better chance against all the red aggro decks, as we can kind of control the game early on and then take over once we deploy Kona and some of our other threats. So that'll do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.